Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever this podcast may find you. It is I, your host, Gavin.
And I, Justin.
Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day.
Hump day!
Yeah. Get over that hump. Hump that hump.
I know. Hump that hump into Friday.
Yeet. Yeet.
Yeah, just skip Thursday altogether. Eat straight over Thursday.
Please.
Just get straight to Friday and then, eat over Friday too. Just land on Saturday.
I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
Anyways, it is Wednesday. And actually, it's been kind of a fat minute since Justin has discussed anything about his business and chaos theory and kind of the antics you've gotten into. You just did a fucking detail. I'll just lead into this. With the Ford Fusion with 200,000+ miles.
Yeah.
But that's not even the start of the problems.
Yeah. So this basically happened when I was initially looking on KSL just to see if I could find some of my competitors if they had any listings. Nobody had any listings, but I found this guy that had an in search of article for a detailer for his car. Contacted him, got just a little bit of information, and arranged to meet on Sunday, which was yesterday. We recorded these on Monday. This was Sunday. Well, I get there, and I knew that I knew the bare basics that it was a 2010 Ford Fusion hybrid, and that he had to go recollect it from somebody who was making payments on the car. That's all I knew. Usually I try to get a little more info than that, but this was kind of last minute, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to tamp this. Nobody's contacted this guy yet, so I'm just going to try to get the business. Well, I show up, and car on the outside's like, okay, it looks pretty good. It really no dings or dents or anything to speak about. It's just a gray Ford Fusion. Nothing insane.
And then you opened the door.
And then I opened the door. Thank God I wasn't met with a horrendous smell, which is usually the case. Surprisingly, there was no smell, which is one of the oddities.
So it didn't smell good? Or it didn't smell bad?
It was completely smell neutral.
Like it smelled like the outside?
Yeah. There was no either direction. There was no scentsy, fruity things, and there was also no cigarette smoke, nastiness, etc.
Because I could see fruity things trying to cover up the cover up the bad smell.
I see it all the time, and it usually doesn't work. It usually ends up in this nasty mixed aroma.
It just blends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But all over the car, everywhere, it was just filthy destroyed. Primarily, the worst bits were in
Were there no rips? Or were there rips?
No, not really rips.
Okay.
It was just absolutely dog nasty filthy. This transcends from I just don't clean my car often to the next level, which is I do have a filthy job. This transcends those two to this person has a legitimate personal hygiene problem.
Yikes.
Yeah, I don't usually say that because you can have plenty of people that have great personal hygiene in a fairly disgusting car.
Or you can have it inversely.
Yep, exactly.
And be pretty fucking not hygienic at all and have
a still moderately clean car.
Like a dirty car, but not necessarily to this level.
Yeah, this thing was, the entire driver's seat at this point was a fair shade of, this has tan seats, mind you, a fair shade of basically black. And anything that the driver would regularly interact with on any surface. It wasn't just hand areas. It was the steering wheel, the gear shifter, the entire seat, the floor, even the sun visors. All those. Whatever this person interacted and did on a daily basis, whether at work or whatever the hell, you could just tell that there was no attempt to clean up whatever was all over themselves every day. And the car took the brunt of that. Now, and it also had evidence that they probably toted around people of the same ilk, because 80% of it was on the driver's seat and all those areas. But it was still around the entire car, where even rear seat passengers had gone in and out and stuff like that. But this is a car where I showed up and I kind of looked at it and said, oh. And I just looked at the guy and said, we're going to see how this ends up. I can promise you it'll be cleaner, but it ain't coming back to new.
Yeah.
It's just not. And That showed true. So I got working on it, and I spent. I also had his Tahoe to do that day as well. He asked if I could just do 2 cars, so I did.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, his personal Tahoe. Which the reason I haven't mentioned it to you is because it was just quick and easy, and there wasn't really anything mentionable about it. It was.
So it wasn't this guy.
No, I know for a fact it wasn't this guy because the Tahoe was fucking clean. It really was. It was just a freshen up basically.
Okay.
No, it was the lady that he had been taking payments from on this car, and.
So the car is now his?
Yeah, the car was always his because it was, as a typical payment through owner plan works, it's under his name until she pays it off in full, and then the title's signed over and whatnot.
Gotcha.
He's basically acting bank.
That's actually what I did with this watch.
Yeah.
My buddy Dutch, he's another car guy actually, and he's into not just watch collection, but just kind of general like luxury item collecting and flipping or whatever. He's flipped bags and furniture and like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But he had sorry for those that are listening at home. I'm wearing I haven't worn this watch in months actually, but it's my 1976 gold Belova Computron driving watch. And I was at a point where it was before my photography as a paid gig had taken off for 2019. I bought this in like January, I think. I'm coming up on a year. A little bit. And I didn't have $300 to drop, but I, worked this job at the flower shop, and so I had a source of income still, and so I was like, I paid him $100. I couldn't remember if it was monthly or weekly. It was spaced out though, and I paid it off in like 3 payments.
Yeah, and so this lady was doing kind of the same thing, but probably a far less amount because she just really did not have the money. In fact, that's why she ended up defaulting on it, and he ended up taking the car back.
Lovely.
So yeah, anyways, I mean, it was, to give you an idea, this car was a perfect example, and I posted this on my Instagram, of what can and cannot be saved on a car. So for instance, generally speaking, unless there's something ridiculous, carpets can most of the time be saved. Even if there's a couple small remnants, most of the stains and the actual filth will come out.
Did the carpets not come out on this?
They did.
Oh, they did? Okay.
So that was the good. Like, it's like I said, it's a good paradox of like what can and cannot be fixed on a car that's this filthy. Because the whole car obviously came back significantly better than it was.
So, spoiler alert for those that are listening, Justin did show me pictures of this car beforehand. It looked like a mixture of a homeless person living in it, but, well, someone that has the hygiene of a homeless person.
Yes.
That does have a home, but they also use this as their dumpster.
Yeah,
you were showing me photos. There was a 1-year-old like cinnamon roll in the back.
Yeah, so like
1 year.
Ironically, there was nothing in the trunk, but in the rear seat footwells, there was 9 table legs, metal table legs.
No table.
No table, just metal table legs that were green for some reason.
Okay.
There was a year-old cinnamon roll. Several.
You actually checked. There was a date on it.
There was a date on the box.
When did it? Do you remember the date that expired?
It was like August of last year.
Jesus.
There was several. Well, there's a shit ton of wrappers and stuff, but there was also a couple cheeseburgers that were like half eaten, just kind of rolled up into a wrapper and thrown back there. Plenty of water bottles, all the normal shit, and spills from those things and all this. I mean, it was just hilarious. You could tell, mostly ended up right behind the drivers. You could just tell that what they did was the typical roll up and flick behind their back.
Yep.
Oh man, but yeah. So that was like step 1 was just clearing the major filth. So I literally got a whole trash bag for everything in because he just said there's nothing in there that I need. It's all her. Throw it all away.
I will interject.
Yes.
And mention the thing that is the most puzzling and boggling between both you and me about this car.
Uh-huh.
You said you lifted the center console.
Oh yeah. So it was a bunch of mold growing in there.
Well, not just that.
Oh yeah. Okay.
It gets more interesting.
Going back to the weird smell. So in the actual armrest portion of the center console where it has the lid, and in there was some mold that was growing for some unknown reason that was obviously cleaned out. And then I took off, I usually do this on really filthy cars, I'll take off the center trim panel around the shifter and all that.
That's what I meant, yes.
Yep. And I'll clean around that, because usually the only way to accurately clean those edges around that whole thing is to take it out, because if there's been spills...
Because there's overlap.
Yeah, if there's been spills, it's usually at that point hardened crystal shits that you have to scrape off. There was a ton of ash and a bunch of other stuff underneath there. A bunch of physical debris that had somehow gotten down there, which I don't know how, because there's no gaps. It's all overlapped.
Like, do you think that someone worked on this car and, like, had lifted that and it was off for, like, some amount of time, and that person was also a smoker, because of course they are, but was there also a cigarette butt in there, though?
No.
Oh, okay.
It was just, there was ash and a shit ton of, like, decent-sized crumbs. Not, like, small shit, but, like, stuff you're wondering, how the hell would that actually get down there?
I mean, I have to just assume that it had been driven for some amount of time with that removed.
It had to have been. I'm sure.
There's no other way.
Yeah, because there's no other way it could have physically gotten down there.
Right.
But yeah, that was baffling. And yet again, another example of, like, it's baffling that it didn't smell, because that was not the only place I found cigarette ash. And I did find butts in the car, too. This car kind of boggled my mind in that sense, and it was a real big challenge for me to see, like, how good I could get it. This is a car where if I, like, was going to try to get it as good as it could get, I would spend a full 2 days on this car. The whole interior would come out, the carpet would come out, the seats would come out, and you'd basically be blasting everything with the top down. In this case, the owner, obviously didn't want to spend that kind of money on this. He just wanted to get it cleaned up enough to sell, because he didn't need the car anymore. And B, just timing it just doesn't make sense.
Well, for you folks at home that have any conspiracy theories as to how the fuck a car gets this dirty.
Oh, keep in mind, in only a year and a half. She had only had it for a year and a half. And prior to that, it was in good condition. He showed me pictures of when he handed it over to her.
Let me finish.
Go ahead.
For those of you that have any conspiracy theories of how the fuck a car gets so dirty like this in the short amount of time that this happens, mailbag.eos@gmail.com.
You almost fucked that up.
I almost said the old line, except for the other podcast. Mailbag.eos@gmail.com. DM us on Facebook, Instagram, whatever.
And if you want to check out pictures of this, go check out Chaos Theory Utah at Instagram. I posted up 2 different sections of 10 pictures comparing back to back from before and after. And it was about an 80% improvement. That last 20%, there's some of it. For instance, the driver's seat. That filth, which is what filth typically does, it eats up the surface of the seat, and it's cracking, and a lot of the coloration is gone from the seat. So it's not, at that point, there's not any physical debris left, but it's just toast.
Just
needs a full re-dye or replacement. Same with the driver's door panel was the same way. It just absorbed
like an armrest sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
It had just absorbed so much that, like, it was still about an 80% improvement, but that last 20%.
Coal miner, like.
No, that's the thing. I've never seen anything like it, and I've cleaned some decently filthy cars. I've never seen anything like this. Whatever this filth was.
The E39 comes to mind.
No, the E39 was just soda, though. That's the thing.
It was just the floor of where the soda was spilled.
It was a lot of extracting on the floor, and it had molded down there and all that, but it was pretty straightforward as to how it was going to happen. It was just time consuming. This stuff would not remove. Even to give you an example, and I do not ever do this on any other car. To get this stuff off, my method to do it, none of the normal cleaners work. They weren't nearly strong enough to get this stuff off.
Okay.
I had to use
acetone.
That's really strong. I had a bucket of water, and I had a scrub pad, and I had to use degreaser. I had to use Simple Green degreaser on the seats. And again, that is not a method I ever recommend or normally do, but this is one of those cases where the damage has already been done, and you're not going to destroy a finish when it's already destroyed.
Right.
So the method is just trying to get rid of the filth. And when the filth is so thick, or not thick necessarily, but so ingrained into there, you're only going to release that by something strong. And that was really, after I went up in product. So I started at normal interior cleaner in a section. Then I went up to some stronger stuff. And then I even tried vinegar after that, and none of those worked. And I was like, and I tried a section with Simple Green, and I had to leave it. I spray it on, leave it sit for about 5 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, I had to really eat in, and then I would go through and scrub it. And then I would come through again and remove it with a damp rag and actually wipe clean after that. But it was quite the process.
It's fucking wild.
Like I was there, so I was at his house from 9 a.m. and I left at 7 p.m. This is with both cars, obviously, but I spent about 6.5 hours on the smaller Ford Fusion, and only about actually just 2 on the Tahoe, even though the Tahoe is significantly bigger.
Crazy. That's fucking wild.
Yeah, this is...
You fucking earned your keep on that one.
This has trumped my worst car that I've done so far award, and I don't...
What was the worst car before that?
It was probably a tie between the E39 and a minivan that I did.
What was up with the minivan?
Normal kid stuff that the mom just didn't clean. Like this,
That's fair.
This lady, bless her heart, this is rarely do I charge over $200 for an interior, especially when they're not looking to get it absolutely pristine. But this is one of those ones where the lady had left it for so long with so many various spills of formula and soda and milk and you name it, it had been spilled in there. Not in large quantities, but just little quantities over time.
I was going to say, did the milk smell at all?
It did have a little bit of an odor, yeah. But like I said, it wasn't like large dumps.
Sure.
It was just like small splotches.
Small coatings.
Yeah, over time. And it took its time. And that one was... Like I said, bless her heart, she would I try to vacuum it up every once in a while, and I'm like, I really don't want to see your house if you think vacuums clean up spills.
Yeah, I don't want to see your vacuum cleaner.
Yeah. So this has trumped those two, which were probably about equal in just the amount of disgust that was around there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
How far down the list is my car?
Your car is really just barely below average. Barely above average on the... I should say this, above average on the Phil scale. It was a little more than normal just because he had the Chinese sauce. But other than that...
And coffee in the speaker.
But other than that, it was pretty straightforward. Even then, it was straightforward. It was just, normally people would have already taken care of those things, but...
Straightforward at a racetrack.
Yeah, nonetheless. But yeah, that was what I did yesterday. But the main thing I wanted to kind of update really quick is, as far as the business is concerned, so I've been on this eternal quest of what am I going to do for the winter? Because obviously it may not stop completely, but detailing slows down in the winter here in Utah. We kind of have a cold state.
No way, really?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
I know. Especially mobile, obviously, and at the time, I still don't have a shop at this time. However, as I was going through thinking of this, I was thinking I still have my CDL, I can get a part-time job, plowing maybe or something like that. I could go out and try to buy my own dirt cheap 1970s Chevy with a plow and do parking lots, and maybe that could be something I do every winter. And Christmas lights was another one that came up that could be done. Trying to think of things that are winter specific, because probably 80% of businesses slow down for the winter. There's really only very few that pick up, and it's mostly retail. What I kind of came down to was, well, you know what? Probably best avenue is try to find a way to do this. Well, I happen to have a good friend that runs a detail shop in Kaysville, just south of me. And we had been, we have a very good professional relationship. We've kind of thrown each other a little bit of work here and there, and we both recommend each other depending on what's going on. And we know each other does very good work. Well, he contacted me and said, hey, I'm slowing down for the winter as well. Would you like to rent a bay from me? To which we talked about it, and he gave me a very, very fair price, to which, I'm going to be exploring this weekend. But the long story short is, more than likely, I'm going to have a shop to be able to continue doing work during the winter. Obviously, that comes at an extra cost, of several hundreds of dollars a month that I have to account for, but it'll enable me to keep moving. The second part of this was, okay, even at that, I know it's still going to be slower, and several $100s a month I can cover with 2 to 3 more jobs. but I still need something a little more regular as this is growing, because it is growing. I am seeing more work, but I need a backfill. Well, I'm actually going to help out for the Christmas season at the company I used to work for as a driver.
Oh?
Yeah, it was kind of...
So how was that conversation with Travis?
It was pretty good. Luckily, despite some instances that happened and whatnot, we ended up parting on very good terms, and had pretty good discussion. And I've still done work for him as well and helped them out a lot, like just as random phone calls as needed, even though I've left.
Sure.
And
well, it's good that you had those other conversations and didn't just come out of the blue saying, "Hey."
Exactly. Oh yeah, no,
Like some of my
I
exes.
don't. I don't ghost people.
That's good.
I stay in contact.
That's good.
And so what's going to happen is they do a lot of work with Amazon, specifically the postal side of Amazon. So they'll take the freight to the post offices. That's what we did. And obviously during Christmas season, that like doubles.
I'm surprised it's only doubles.
In some cases, triples. It just depends on where you're going.
Sure.
But being that that's the case, I just hadn't even thought about that because it hadn't crossed my mind. And then as I was doing a detail on Thursday last week, it crossed my mind that, hang on, that may be a viable option. It's more or less exactly what we both need. He needs people for the winter season.
It is a win-win for both parties.
Yeah, and I need something fairly regular. And this is done to give you an idea of how Amazon works across the whole United States as far as the Postal Service and regular Prime goes, and not the Amazon-specific stuff goes. That stuff moves to the post offices between midnight and 8 a.m. So that's, when these happen. So the route that I would be looking to take would more or less go from about 4 a.m. to 8 a.m., and I could still continue normal operations after those hours.
Okay.
So it's a grind, obviously.
Yeah.
There's no way around that. But it allows me to do both, create some regularity for myself, and still maintain...
Structure is good.
I'm weird. I like craziness, but
Your company is called Chaos Theory after all.
But it'll allow me to also still maintain openings for having the company do things and details.
Sure, you're still keeping Chaos Theory a priority.
Mm-hmm.
You're just opening up options for structure and regularity, so you can, sleep better at night.
Yeah. And so that's what we'll be moving to here. So, I'll probably update next week. I'll be talking with him this weekend, and we shall see if I have a shop, sometime in the near future. And if I do, I'll be blasting that everywhere because I will want as much work as possible.
Of course.
But we shall see. It's looking good on that front. Other than that, actually, I don't even think I ever mentioned that I got the shell on my Tacoma a while back.
It's been like a month since you've talked about anything.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute. So, my setup in the truck is about 50% to where I want it. It has a shell on it now. It's there's at this point it's small tweaks and changes. It's I want a different water tank that's a little more tucked up to the cab. I've already designed. Basically, it's going to have a generator with a remote stop and start. That's kind of the uphill battle that I fight. Is instead of choosing the easy way out, as I've mentioned before, with a trailer or van, I want it to be compact, completely removable, multi-purpose vehicle, and a bunch of other stuff, just to make it the most efficient system possible.
Yeah.
Most people that design them are just okay, big ass van, fat ass water tank in the back, kind of throw your pressure washer somewhere, but it's just kind of haphazardly thrown together, and it functions and it works perfectly fine, and it's very cheap and easy to do. But I am an OCD person.
That's why I have you around.
I like things to go. This is where I like the regularity to a degree. I like finding that perfect balance between functionality, cost, and even aesthetics to a point.
It's precision.
It is. It's making it, honing the skill to an area.
Sure.
And we're getting there, because that also enables me to do things others couldn't. So, give you an example, if I was toting a trailer around, there's many places that would be annoying as hell.
Well, backing up, it just becomes more complicated initially.
People's driveways in general, anywhere.
True. Street parking.
Street parking. Yeah, if I have to get that anywhere, it's a pain. Or like even at people's works, because I've done a couple at people's works. Like I have to find somewhere to park a vehicle that instead of being about 20 feet long, like or not 20 feet, like around 16, 20 feet long, like my Tacoma is.
It's like 24 feet long.
Yeah, it's like 24, 26, 30, whatever the whole combination is.
Depends on your trailer, yeah.
Trailer and truck, and it can be really annoying because you've got twice as much vehicle to park. Whereas with the Tacoma,
it's one of the reasons why you didn't want to get the Colorado ZR2.
Yeah,
because you would have to have a trailer for that.
Yeah, because there's no bed space. Same reason. Well, and also on the flip side, why I didn't want to get an F-150 because I didn't need using more bed space would be nice, but the truck itself is bigger. Whereas with the Tacoma, I can still fit in slimmer spots. That thing can still more or less fit in most car spots.
It's actually a similarity that the Taco and the Stinger have. It doesn't fit in either of those niches. It kind of created its own.
Yeah, the Tacoma's a few inches bigger in most directions than the Ranger or the Colorado, and it shows.
That's what I'm going to call this episode. A few inches bigger in all directions.
But it fits. And on a random side note, tomorrow is my 6 months anniversary with the Tacoma, November 5th.
Hey! Congratulations.
And I am just shy of 18,000 miles.
Okay.
So I'm about on par to be doing about the same mileage I did with my Stinger.
God damn. I mean, with this possible, not move back, but this, I don't even know what to call it. You're with you kind of going back to, not, I want to say it's even going back to package runner, but you doing that work.
Yep.
It's going to basically cut your Uber and Lyft out of your life.
That's the goal.
Which is going to cut down on mileage.
Yeah, I'll still be doing commute mileage, so there'll be a portion of that'll be reabsorbed, just going down to West Valley.
Well, sure.
But yeah, it should cut back on some mileage. And on top of that, the second goal that I wanted to talk about in here, which is slightly company related, but more personal car related, is the goal that I have is to more or less hand that truck over to the company at the beginning of the year.
Right.
In order to do that, I need a daily. Now, anybody who knows me knows I also have 2 other cars besides the Tacoma, despite the fact that that's what I drive pretty much always right now.
Well, and one of those cars has been down for the count for longer, which creates an urgency to get that car in particular roadworthy again.
Yeah, so my Saab has more or less technically been roadworthy. It needs a few things at this point. It does need a turbo rebuild. The turbo's starting to not love life. But that's par for the course at its mileage.
Hey, same.
Yeah. My other car, which we've mentioned on here before and whatnot, is my 1995 Audi URS6, which is the first generation S6. And I actually acquired that car through a guy named Nate, who has a beautiful coupe Quattro that's built to the nines.
Yeah, it's one that I filmed. It's my very first thing I ever did with integrated back in 2015. The car made at that time 650 at the crank.
I think he's a little north of 7 now.
That was his goal for a couple of years.
Yep.
It's good to hear it's finally there.
Beautiful car, but that, basically him and Dave Pecoraro, who is a local Audi nut job that has owned, I was joking with Gavin, probably more 5-cylinders than anybody in the country.
We should really get him on the show.
We should. He would be a great person to have on the show.
Yeah.
But between those two, this was a collab. That car that I bought was a collab from them. They found it up in a field in Idaho. It had originally been a Utah car, bought it strong, handed it off to his son after 10 years of ownership. Son drove it up to Idaho, basically couldn't find people to service it, traded it in, sat under a tree for 3 years. They bought it thinking it was a parts car, found out that it ran and drove, ironically, faster than the URS6 that Nate owned at the time.
Yeah, he told me about that.
And Nate was frustrated because his beautiful, pristine, one-owner gray URS6 that was
a grail
gorgeous,
for some people.
Really a grail car that was so well maintained was significantly slower than my car, which at the time they thought was a pile of rust. After they cleaned it off and everything, it was actually in really good condition. Yeah. It was just covered in crap.
Sure.
And there was a bunch of stuff they had to replace. There was axles and a whole timing job and a decent amount of servicing they did.
Yeah.
But anyways, after 2.5 years of me driving it normally and owning it, it was in dire need of full suspension rebuild, which is what is. So basically,
Oh, and that's when I met you.
Yeah, and it was already showing signs then, and they got a little worse after that. And that's when I basically pulled it in the garage at my house and put it up on 4 jack stands, took off the whole front suspension, and it's basically sat there ever since, simply because at the time it was a time thing with Package Runner. I just didn't have the time. Then it transitioned to, I'm starting my own business. Now I don't have the money.
Yeah.
Slightly more time where I can create my own time, but now no funds at the moment to do it. But the goal is with this stuff with the business to create a little bit more funds that I can funnel into that, get that done at the beginning of the year, hand the truck over to the business, and then that car will be my daily driver and probably spell the Tacoma even more miles. So that the Tacoma can be even more just work stuff, I'll still use it for play occasionally, but...
Yeah, when you go do off-roady things.
Oh, yeah, it's great for that. It's so much fun. And that's kind of like the car update part of my life at this point. It's, basically with the Audi, it's... I already bought from, actually, Dave Pecoraro, funny enough, new Bilsteins with H&R lowering springs that are going to lower it 1.5 inches all the way around.
Nice.
Because it definitely rode like a tank before. It was a monster truck.
Nothing
hardcore.
wrong with that.
No, it's just what the car was in 1995. It was actually, believe it or not, the Audi S series was never intended to be a sports sedan series. That was prior to the A8 even existing.
Right. It was like another 3 years?
Yep, 3 years.
98?
Mm-hmm. That S6 was actually the highest and most expensive Audi you could get in 95. There was nothing above it. That was the luxury barge.
The pinnacle.
It was.
The pinnacle of Audi.
Uh-huh. So, so I've got those Bilsteins and H&R lowering springs, and then I'm going to be doing... There's a few different things that'll go through the process. It needs new brakes and rotors, but those are staying stock. I'm not changing those.
Sure.
It needs to get the strut uprights sandblasted and powder coated because they're a little rusty after 25 years and 168,000 miles.
Yeah.
New lower control arms and bushings, and then wheel bearings. Just because it's basically I'm just redoing the whole front end. I have it all the way apart. There's no reason.
Does the rear end need anything?
It does need its control arms. They're squeaky. They're not loose though. They're just squeaky. But so I'm going to deal with those for now, and I'll do a rear end rebuild at some point.
Sure.
And then it needs its exhaust welded up. So I got also from Dave Pecoraro.
He's just your 5-cylinder parts guy.
He's a parts bin. He's a walking, breathing parts bin.
Shout out to Broken Quattros.
Yeah, he has a
Instagram.
YouTube channel. He has a YouTube channel as well.
He does.
He does.
He's homies with fucking Brian Scotto and like the Hoonigans and shit.
Yeah.
He helped Brian actually with his QC.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, go check him out. He does some good stuff, and his videos are really interesting. And he's currently in the middle of building a original '83 Audi Quattro up to full spec right now. So,
Dave, let us drive your shit, dog.
Oh, jeez. What a shout out! A shout out and a beg at the same time.
I'm about that.
Yeah. So then I got a basically catback exhaust from him that was it's a Magnaflow. That's what it is.
Gotcha.
So that's like mocked up. Basically what I did when I got that is I took the factory one off, which I swear to God was made of concrete. I'm dead fucking serious. It's heavy as shit. And then I have it temporarily mocked up with 2 slip tubes and some clamps. So it's like there and attached. It's not coming off.
Yeah.
Actually, ironically, it did come off once. Easton, a friend of mine, had driven it to and from Salt Lake, and there had been people pointing on the way back at like something random. We pull in the driveway and looked down, and we realized the exhaust had like come unslipped and had been sitting there sparking on the road.
Oh my! Did it sound any different?
Not really. No, because the exhaust is pretty loud, and right now with the way it's mocked up, it doesn't have any resonators. So really, whether they're on or off, it still had a little bit of a drone.
So what you're saying is, for a brief moment in time, your beloved 98 S6, sorry, 95
S6.
I don't know why I said 98.
Yeah.
95 S6 was in fact a 95 Civic.
Yes. But I got them mocked up properly to where basically it has slip clamps on there, just kind of keeping it in place right now. But it obviously needs to be welded and resonator and X pipe added right there.
Sure.
And then it'll be more or less ready for the road, and it'll just be small tweaks from there on out. And then to finish up the Saab, it needs a turbo rebuild, an alignment, Shout out to Scott, who will be doing the alignment whenever I get around to it.
And whenever he has time too.
Exactly. And then I need to get my deep dish wheels fixed, which has been another thing that's been delayed for a while now, and new tires on those. And then it'll be, more or less as good as it's ever been.
Dialed-ish.
Yeah. It's still to this day, like, I just have never had legitimate, like, it stopped running problems.
Sure.
The closest we came to that was the near fire experience that me and you had, which is all that happened was the main lead from the ignition coil came out of the distributor.
Because we had been driving on a washboard snow road the day before, and it just loosened.
Yeah, and this was going full tilt, full throttle, up a hill, and it just all of a sudden lost power.
Up Monte Cristo.
Yeah, and all of a sudden lost power. Nothing. Try to start it, nothing. Pull over, pop the hood, see a lot of smoke coming out, and then get in and look underneath.
Oh, hey, my cat is like red.
Glowing red, like damn near on fire red.
It was almost on fire.
Yeah. And so then it's when we started throwing snow at it.
Yeah.
So
that was a good day.
Yes. So that's where the cars are in my life at this moment. Now, the question I want to pose at the end of this to kind of round this off is this. That's where the cars are sitting at this moment. I'd like to turn the Audi into the daily driver for the moment. But I don't necessarily want to beat that as a daily. It's still in very good condition. It's a fairly rare car, and I appreciate keeping it in that condition. I'm not opposed to taking it out in snow and salt. I do that all day long. I don't care. But you can, there's a balance there. So the goal is by probably mid next year, I really miss my Stinger.
Considering that you don't own it anymore, you kind of still haven't stopped talking about it.
Oh yeah, my Stinger boner's hard because I haven't been able to whack it off in forever.
We do have a Stinger friend that's coming into town in the next few days.
Yeah, I'll be able to.
So you can kind of bust your nut.
Yeah, I'll be able to do that over this weekend. But the long story short is I've had this debate. Pretty much no matter what, I've been, despite the fact I've thought of other things, I just want the Stinger back. However, I did think of an alternative.
Well, you call it an alternative. It's really more of a cousin.
It's a cousin. Yeah, I'm doing the southern thing and fucking around with the cousin.
Yikes.
Yeah, big yikes. So I was thinking, okay, I could get a Stinger, whether I get new or used, whichever one. I did kind of like my 18 because ironically I like not having the 3D camera and the wireless charging because my phone doesn't fit in the wireless charging. The 3D camera was kind of shit when
the wireless charging. It's kind of unnecessary because you had fast charging ports kind of everywhere.
Yeah, it had and when you get the wireless charging, it eliminates that fast charging port up front. So I would rather have that, and that's only in the 18s. Anyways, so. And then it also added the 3D camera system, which honestly was kind of shit. I just, very few of them, unless you're going north of 100,000, are actually that great.
Sure. Wait, Justin's saying something less than ideal about a Kia Stinger?
Oh, it had its flaws.
What?
It had its flaws.
No.
Okay.
See, I'm doing the thing.
Mm-hmm, I know.
I have it with Porsches, and you have it with Stingers.
I will go ahead and rattle off the flaws right now, though, very easily. Paint is one.
Yep.
It definitely
on more than one color.
It definitely has. There is, as much as I don't necessarily care about it, there is something to be said about the fact that you still have to say you own a Kia. It is just something to deal with, and everybody.
You kept on battling that as a detriment at the beginning. I was like, it's gonna get you, man.
Oh no, and it's still like, since I don't care about it, it didn't bother me in my relationship with the car.
No.
Where it bothered me was other people
on the internet.
Still just a Kia.
I would never own a Kia.
Yeah, 80,
shout out Tyler Tarbox.
Shout out all the 80 IQ motherfuckers in the world. Anyways.
Just kidding. I love you, Tyler. Please don't hate me.
I wasn't saying that directly about Tyler. Let me just make that abundantly clear right now.
For the record, because we are on record.
Yeah, for the record, I'm talking and joking about most of the other motherfuckers.
Basically, all-wheel drive army, if we're being honest.
Yeah, as a group. So that was definitely number 2. Number 3 is like, some of the, and I've said this a couple times, the main tech, I would have liked it dressed up a little more. It functioned flawlessly. Never had a beat, never had a problem. And same with like the maps and the infotainment and all that. However, it was still Hyundai Kia, very similar to everything else. It wasn't anything nicer.
Well, they kind of did in similar ways, they didn't do it in the same way directly as how Porsche did it, because when the Panamera came out,
Yep.
that had the amazing interior, or like not amazing, but basically the next generation of Porsche interior, and
Yep.
then everything else got it.
And that's what's happening with the Stinger right now. Is like
Not quite to the same extent,
Yeah.
but there are definitely elements of Stinger in things such as what did you drive earlier this year?
it was the Optima.
It was the Optima, yeah.
The 2019 Optima Turbo
Yeah.
that got the heated and cooled seats, it got the heads-up display, and it got the heated steering
But not
wheel.
even just that, but the design of the interior, some of it trickled down.
Started to trickle down. What I was mainly talking about is the one part of the Stinger interior that's really well shared with everything else is that infotainment, and I would have liked to see that dressed up more. The center.
I was never a fan of the skin on it.
It's the skin mainly. That's it. Like
Yeah,
the
everything-
functionality's perfect.
It's fine,
Honestly,
yeah.
it functioned exactly the way you'd want it to.
It wasn't very pretty to look at.
No, not in that interior, because that interior was pretty well, beautifully designed, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, the interior did not match the skin of the UI.
Yep. The center screen performance stuff was straight gimmick. It was junk. It was unusable. The boost, oil pressure, and oil temperature gauges refreshed every second. Like they're not smooth at all. It was. I mean, like, what the fuck? And then on top of that, like the G meter and the timer, it was pointless.
Yeah.
There was no reason to have it. It didn't function well. Just get the fuck rid of it.
Because 4-door GTR, bro.
And the biggest downside, honestly, of that car is the Kia dealerships.
Oh, the ownership experience going through the dealership.
Hands down.
But also, part of it had to do with the fact that, like, you have to deal with that because of your pain in the ass with the paint.
Yeah, and really, even my dealer was pretty good about it. It's not like my dealer's probably better.
There was
than most
one
of them.
individual.
It wasn't at that dealer though. He was the okay. So the individual that I dealt with was the warranty rep for the whole of Utah.
Oh, okay.
That's the individual I was having trouble with.
Okay, gotcha.
So this is what I'm talking about. The problem is
Sorry, it's been like fucking like more than 6 months now.
it's been over a year probably at this point.
Well,
since I
since
was
we
really
talked
dealing
about
with
it.
So the problem is this. If you think of what their demographic has been for so long, the dealer network and all the franchises are very used to dealing with cheap customers. They're very used to, not catering to people.
Just lots of bullshit.
Lots of bullshit. They kind of just, everything.
Saying no a lot.
Yeah, just basically saying, no. And that's kind of how they've made their money and kept their money. Now, upper Kia corporate seems to want to change that to a degree, being that they're trying to release a Stinger and they're trying to move up a little bit in branding.
Stinger and Genesis. And more performance cars such as the Veloster N.
And even like, the refreshed K900 and all these other vehicles that they're bringing out.
Right.
However, it's probably going to take about 5 years for that to really trickle down and take a true effect at the dealer.
To become a completely concrete foundation for the companies.
Yes, because the dealers are still franchises and they have franchise rules, but it's going to take a minute. They're going to be kicking and screaming going into that because it's going to cost them money.
Sure.
And that's evident everywhere. Like you go into for instance, Kia dealer. Kia dealers are even, in my opinion, having been in multiple Honda and Toyota dealers, below them.
Damn.
Honda and Toyota dealers they're just like the cars. They're functional. They're not pretty or crazy. They don't have this fancy ass $3,000 coffee machine.
Right.
But they do everything you need it to do, and they're not a bad place to sit.
Subaru's the same way.
Yeah, most of those cars that are mainstream are about that same level.
Right.
The Kia dealerships, now they've rebranded a lot, but a lot of them are just, there's 2 of them in Salt Lake that are fully rebranded, that are good now. Mine was an older dealership. Despite the fact that my experience with the people was good, the dealership itself was like, this is laughable for a car of this expense to be here.
I paid $50,000 for a car from this place?
Exactly. And that's having been a part and still being a part of the United States Kia Stinger group, that is echoed a lot. That's one of the things I see on there most is people posting about like the dealership experience is just atrocious. Like people getting denied a warranty claim for warped rotors because they have aftermarket wheels on. Which
you see now.
which
That doesn't cost that.
There's not a correlation between those two.
No.
I understand denying warranty claims based on aftermarket parts. That's not one of them.
No.
And so that's honestly, in my opinion, the biggest downside of that car.
Also, there are people with warped rotors on those cars.
Here's the weird thing. So many people with warped rotors.
And here you are.
Beating the piss out of it.
Nothing. They got a little blue.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I got those straight up. I remember when we got them royally blue that one day out at Antelope.
Yeah.
Like, really properly hot. Mm-hmm. Nothing.
Because they're Brembos.
But apparently, that's been a very common issue.
That's interesting.
Like,
I haven't heard that
one. A recall actually went out on it.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I don't know what. It's weird. But anyways, yeah, they... So anyways, like, here's my...
So would that warranty come from Brembo or from Kia?
Kia, because it goes through Kia. It's not straight from Brembo.
Okay.
It's a Kia part that's made by Brembo.
Gotcha.
So, here's the debate. I could do that with the Stinger. Sorry, long tangent getting there.
This is going to be a longer episode than we bargained for.
I think so. So my debate is this. The Stinger's cousin, which ironically the Stinger came up beforehand, is the Genesis G70, which has been heralded, as we mentioned last episode, as the Motor Trend Car of the Year.
It has been. It put in another set of terms for the driver, not necessarily for people that need to sit in the back, but for the driver, it's the better Stinger because it's nicer appointed. It's just shorter wheelbase, which means dynamically speaking, it's a better car.
Yep.
And if you can't necessarily jump up to the V6, if you're stuck with the 4-cylinder, guess what? You can still get a 6-speed.
Yeah, which is pretty cool in a car, like that. So like suspension, transmission, engine, drivetrain-wise, they're effectively identical.
Yeah.
It's mainly your body and interior, the big difference. The interior on the Genesis is like, it's very interesting because it's almost like S-Class meets sports sedan, meets like BMW 3 Series in this weird little mashup between the two. Because the appointments and everything are very, very well done. And I
say maybe amend your S-Class comment to E-Class? Would that be more accurate?
Well, no, because I'm not saying it's of S-Class quality. I'm saying they met in the middle.
Okay, so...
Yeah, so like, like in the end, yeah.
Similarity closer to an E-Class.
E-Class, yeah, in the end.
Gotcha.
Meeting between the two worlds. And so it's weird because you have all these really nicely appointed surfaces with brushed aluminum, and there's honestly no flat black plastic. There's no shitty black plastic.
No piano black?
Nope. It's all beautiful, designs and aluminum and leather and Alcantara and, normal, fairly luxury car stuff in this smaller sports sedan body. It's kind of weird because
it's interesting because they have equal amounts of luxury and sport. Mm-hmm. There is just a couple things get traded off for one thing on the opposite car. So the luxury of legroom, in the Stinger gets traded off for legroom in the G70, but there's finer materials have been made in the G70, and it's more nicely appointed, especially at least more so up front.
Yeah, and
but you also
even have
get sportier.
Yep.
By having a shorter wheelbase
and a little bit less weight.
And less weight, but you don't have the luxury of having as much legroom in the back because it's like you said, it was 4 inches shorter.
4 inches shorter, yeah, and then also you don't have the luxury of having the lift back.
That's also true.
Which honestly, that
is a luxury.
That is a luxury. It honestly makes that Stinger so much more of a usable car.
Hell, we used it as a camera car once.
And that the Stinger also happens to be a car that actually hides it very well. At first,
I think so. Yeah.
At first and second glance, it's not like the Audi RS7, which looks gorgeous, but it's really sloped back, and you can kind of tell that something's going on.
I would say it's arguably closer to Panamera than A7 in
Yeah.
terms of its sport backness.
Because it still has like a flat deck lid at the end that makes it look like a normal trunk.
Right.
Until you pop back, and it's this whole big panel with glass. So that's the debate. And about like mid next year, I'll be looking to get back into a nicer car like that as a daily. And it's a like interesting choice of like, what do I do? I could get like, a 1-year-old or 2-year-old Stinger or a really nice brand new G70. So like it'll basically be the same formula that I already love with, the drivetrain and everything like that in a nicer, different package.
So out of those two choices, I personally would want you in the G70. However, I don't see you doing that. And I see you going for an old Stinger, possibly the same Stinger that you had before.
That's been the other debate, is actually chasing down my exact car.
Right.
It's in Salt Lake. I know that much. I basically, I knew somebody that worked at the dealer at the time, and he didn't hand off any pertinent information. I don't have the guy's name or address or anything like that
because that's illegal.
Yeah, exactly. I just said, can you tell me where it's at? It's in Salt Lake. Cool. So,
great, thanks.
Yeah. So I know it's still local to the area, and I've been hunting and pecking trying to find the person that now owns it, and I will get there. I have a friend who may or may not be in the sheriff's office, that may or may not be able to look up a plate, that may or may not be able to hand me some information at some point.
This person may or may not own a Performance Blue Mustang GT with the
supercharger.
No,
different person.
Oh!
No, he's not. Oh. He's not special enough to be able to do that.
Oh, yet.
He also doesn't work in the Salt Lake district. He works in Layton, so he can't do.
Oh, Salt Lake County that this guy's in.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So,
oh, yeah, you said Salt Lake. Duh.
So that would be the trump card, I think. I think if I can't find that car, then it would make the G70 to me more of a potential. If I can find my exact Stinger and I can convince the owner to sell it.
What if you can't, though? What if you find the guy and you know, like, that's the car?
Yep.
And he's like, sorry, can't do it.
At that point, I'll start going haywire, being like, what would make you be willing to do this? I will pay what you paid for, which is not even worth now.
How many times do I have to suck your dick?
Yeah. Like, whatever is necessary, let's put it on paper, and we'll try to get there, and I'll do what I need to do to sacrifice.
Or satisfy.
Or satisfy. Yeah, because I really would actually like to have that exact car back, because that was the first brand new car I ever bought.
It's a very significant car to you. I mean, it's to me as well. I mean, for us, for this channel.
Yeah.
Creating content.
Yeah, first new car I ever bought. First car of a color that I ever bought. Most of my other cars have been of gray shades or whatnot, or white.
Yeah, that's true.
It's, the first car over $10,000 I ever bought.
Well over.
Well north of that. It was, I put a shit ton of miles on it in a year.
I mean, you sold your battle wagon for it.
Yeah,
not traded it in.
Yeah, I sold one of my really prized possessions for it, and it's just, there's so much significant in my life that happened at around the same time that car did, that car means a lot to me.
Sure.
So, for instance, when I traded it in, the dealership that I bought it from actually bought it back from me through the Toyota dealership for $35,000, which is actually more than it was worth at that time. And currently, I think it technically booked at like 33 dealer buyback, because at that time I think they were selling for like 38, and I think they sold it at the price they bought it for. So I think they.
Oh, so they broke even.
I'm sure they did, yeah. But my thing is, I want, like, even if I go back at that time, by probably this time next year, when I'm looking to do this in like June or something, it'll probably be worth on book value, so long as the guy hasn't put shitloads of miles on it, which I don't assume he would have. Most people don't like me.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it'll probably be worth in the high 20s by that point. But the thing is it sounds stupid, because normally I'm much more financially sound than this. I would just be like, dude, I'll pay you what you paid. You paid 35, I'll pay 35. Like, let's figure this out. I want that car, because that car meant so much as like a pinnacle turning point in my life, where I almost feel like that was when I transitioned from a boy to a man. I transitioned from owning all these older cars that I'd I know that sounds like kind of hilarious hyperbole, but I transitioned from...
Not really, though.
Like, that was at a time in my life...
I think that's really profound.
6 months after I had gotten my house and started working at Package Runner and all this stuff. Like, there was all these new things going on, and I kind of took what I had learned at Package Runner and applied that to my life and realized, hey, I'm spending more maintaining this older car. Why don't I just get something newer? Hey, the Stinger looks cool. That looks awesome.
I mean, I knew you for like 3 months or something. Not even?
Yeah.
Maybe 3 months before you got that car. But,
oh, no, you knew me a lot longer than that. I got that car in 2017. We'd known each other for a year and a half at that point.
No, we hadn't. I met you at the end of 16.
I know, and I got that car in 2018. Sorry, I meant 2018.
Oh, fuck, you're right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So I'd known you for a year
Yeah.
or so.
But I mean, and I'll
But
actually
no,
get.
I do remember. I mean, but even still, knowing for someone for a year is not even really that long. But I could see that like a lot of your life was like accelerating at that point, and like a lot of things were like changing and like happening and going. So like from my perspective, it like when you say like transitioning from like into quote unquote from a boy into a man or whatever, I don't think that's really that far off.
And I think that car was kind of the nail in the coffin for that, ironically speaking, because that was the last big change that happened.
Yeah. No, that's a really big kid move to make.
It was, and it was scary at the time, because that was like, I went and got it, found out that I was pre-approved for it.
Oh, I remember when you called me.
I
was like, what?
I just called you out of the blue, and I was like, hey.
I think I was on my way to the Camcast, I think.
No, you weren't, because it was late that night when I came down here. You were here.
Oh, no, you called me when you were looking at it. You're like, I think I want a Kia. I'm like, get the fuck out of here.
And then I came down here
No
and
way.
blew your socks off.
Uh-huh.
But
yeah, we did 100 going down this hill.
Yes. Like it was nothing.
And if you ever come to my apartment, you would not believe that we hit triples here.
Yeah. As Gavin was sitting there like jaw on the floor like, what?
Like, how is this fucking possible?
Anyways, but like that car really was the final thing, and it was the scariest move because I all of a sudden went from owning car outright, no car payment, to now, oh shit, I have $600 a month on my lease that I have to pay. And that was when I really started digging and figuring out how to make that stuff work and, be able to make that payment. And
going back to the becoming quote unquote a man. Like it really does go to that.
It really did solidify all of that.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
at that point I had kind of made all these moves.
It's just putting that load of responsibility on your shoulders and going like, okay, you got to fucking carry this now.
Yeah.
It is on your shoulders.
And that was also a focal point in quote unquote more or less the start of this channel.
Well, I mean, the whole reason why we have a YouTube channel in the first place was you wanted to use your friend as some free video service. And then I was like, hey, wait a minute. Let's
You wanted to, have some fun filming it as well.
Well, I wanted to have fun filming it, but then like I fed you the same line that Todd Deacon fed me on the Porsche 911 shoot. It's like, hey, do you want a promotion?
Yeah.
Let's actually make something of this.
And that's when we started actually attempting to make something of it.
And that was the day before I got fired from Integrated.
So many. See, you see what I mean? So many things revolve around like that specific car.
Oh no, for sure. No, I'm not denying that at all. So like, yeah, that'd be super fucking cool if you got that car back. And kind of bringing this back to the beginning of this conversation, or this topic rather, of what you should do next. Yeah, like it would be really cool if you did that. I am always a fan of people expanding their palette and their portfolio of cars that they've owned. Like, because when you see someone buying, I don't know, if they had, what's something that people keep on just buying? I don't know. If you had like a left field Charger SRT8.
Yeah.
If you keep on buying Chargers, like, what are you doing? Or like not just Chargers specifically, like big V8 American like sedans.
Yeah.
If you go from like a Pontiac G8 to a Chevy SS.
Yeah. Not much has changed.
What have you really accomplished there?
Yeah.
You're putting that much more money into, like, what exactly more are you getting out of it, right?
Yeah.
I feel like if you're making that jump into spending, I mean,
decent money.
I mean, high 20s and high 30s, that's also a pretty huge gap in between those two.
Yeah.
But in terms of making that jump for another car, I feel like it should be something different. Or not different, but be more refreshing than just literally the same car that you had.
Normally, I'm that exact same way, because even the Stinger was that jump for me.
It was absolutely that jump for you.
Not only not an Audi, not any sort of German whatsoever, also my first Korean car of any kind, and also, actually, the first non-German car non-European car that I myself have purchased. as like a car that
It was
I
also
keep.
your first proper modern luxury car.
Yes.
Because it's arguable to say that both of your S6s are luxury cars, just from two very different decades.
Yeah, from mid '90s and early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and so normally I'm on that exact same boat, but I can't shake that car. It's a weird one.
You know they made more than one of those, right? They made a lot of them.
I think it's just at this point the significance of that specific one.
I know.
It's one of those.
I'm giving you some shit.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I don't think the logic will combat that. So if it is possible, I think that's priority number one.
Yeah.
If that exact car,
I wouldn't. I wouldn't slander you for that. I wouldn't criticize you for that at all. I mean, part of me also wants to go find my Outback.
Yeah.
And see where the fuck that's at, because that car has some fucking history to it too.
Mm-hmm. And that's, even my S6 wagon, as I mentioned a couple weeks ago on the podcast, came full circle and ended up down in St. George, and we found out that it had gone through one owner that bought it after me that was practically living in it by the end and had ran it into a curb and been driving on a bent control arm for 3 months and destroyed the tires and the wheels.
Well, and for context though, if I'm speaking about that Outback, that has, not to say something is more significant to me than another thing is to you.
But it does have more years.
I'm comparing this to your 200 wagon. That's even more significant to me than that, because when my parents bought that Outback XT, my dad had to sell his 964 for that car.
Yeah.
So, and that was when I was really starting to get into cars. I was 11 or something.
Yeah.
And that was, I spent more or less every day in that car with Mom driving me. We're still recording, right? For those of us that listened to Tuesday's episode, we had a card fill up on us, but we are not full for Wednesday's episode, so that's great. But yeah, our first road trip in that car was down to Death Valley. My mom would oftentimes drive me to school in it. Dad and I would go drive down to Southern Utah through the golf bags in there. And that's, with that being my childhood transitioning into adulthood. Driving my first girlfriend in that, around Park City. Not one that Justin, different one.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then when that car finally became my car, then having like the accidents that I've had in that car, but then also learning how to canyon carve in that, which it helped me become the person who I fucking am today. And then using it as a camera car and that's had
and there's no doubt that like by just sheer time and lineage, like that car in theory,
that car was 14 years of my life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It has a lot more meaning to you just by the time and like it's been through so much of your life.
Yes. Which is kind of why it broke my heart when it died.
Yeah.
And so that would be interesting just to even find like that chassis. Like even if there's no motor, no interior, no nothing. If there was nothing else.
Stumble upon it in the junkyard somewhere.
That would be really funny.
Yeah.
I would conceivably try to get a loan just for that.
Well, once it's in a junkyard, it can't be bought back.
True.
Sadly. But yeah, no, it would be cool to find it. Because I am still a proponent of...
STI 6-speed?
That'd be a sweet swap. No, I am still
It'd be $7,000, but
As much as I am a proponent, just like you, of like new experiences and new cars and different things, because there's so much to glean from all the other stuff.
Because the car world is fucking huge.
Yeah.
There's a lot to take in with the various avenues of this world that we live in with automobiles.
I actually just thought of even this. Stinger to truck was the same thing to me. I'd never owned a truck myself.
Yeah.
Big jump there, too.
It was a big jump there, and that really signified that, like, okay, you are committing to this detailing thing.
Yes. But yeah, I think there's still some times where, like, as an automotive person, I'll say it's totally okay for you to look back at that because I understand why you're going to. Because at that point, it transcends. It's not just a car that you owned. It's a car that you, like, lived with and was with you.
That you grew up with, that you grew into, that it grew into you.
Because at that point, it transcended from being just a commuter to part of your life.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you can tell when a car person is a car person when they refer to something as part of their family.
Yeah. I mean, even my mom jokingly still refers to all my cars as my kids.
They are, aren't they?
They kind of are. Hey, that's kind of sad. That means I went from 6 kids down to 3.
And you don't live in a farm in the 30s, so this got a whole lot weirder.
I know. Where are the kids going? Oh, I sold them. Oh, that's even worse.
Yikes! Oh, boy, here we go. Well, what is funny, a side note, my grandmother was number 12 of 13 in the family.
Damn.
She was born in 1930.
Yeah.
In the Midwest.
So that's
on a farm.
Fairly par for the
They weren't
course.
expecting to keep all their kids.
No.
All of their kids graduated college at Indiana University, and they believe they still have the record.
Jeez.
Yeah. Craziness.
That's insane.
Well, if you are still listening, if you're still holding on to this podcast, write in. Tell Justin what you think he should do. Should he go experience more of the Korean takeover with the G70 and possibly have that be his next ride?
And possibly, which is another part which we talked about, a better dealership experience.
Possible better dealership experience, and with it being Genesis and not Kia.
Yep.
Or should he chase his long lost love and try to rekindle the fire that is his old Stinger, where everything started?
I would love to hear it. I may just like completely not listen to any of it, but I'd love to hear it anyways.
You probably won't, but but yeah, mailbag.eos@gmail.com. Hit us up on our Facebook and our Instagrams, or if you know us personally, hit me up or hit up Justin. Your Instagram is Chaos Theory Utah, and mine is gp.media, but you probably already knew that. And yeah, we need to record fucking Friday's episode because that watch is off, but it's still fucking late. So,
yeah.
And you have to drive to Syracuse. So, yeah, we'll get on to Friday. But thank you all for listening. And if you have any Track Daily crushes or fantasy car debates or legitimate, like real car debates, let us know. So we will. You'll hear from us next time, hopefully on Friday or sometime in the near future. But until then, I've been Gavin.
And I've been Justin.
And this has been the Expedition of Speed Podcast.